All right, everybody, we are back for another edition of Ball State of the Union. Colin, it's been a couple weeks. You ready to get into this?
Let's
Let's
go.
go. All right, cue the music.
We're talking Ball State. Don Shondell and Ray McCallum talking Ball State. Nate Davis and Bonzi Wells. Schumann, Bell Tower, and Worthen. Fans Oliver from Muncie to Berlin. Getting Cannons, Carters, and Greeks.
As the posting of this video, it should be Thursday, April 3rd, 2025. Colin, we're here for some talk about different things, Ball State, different things in the MAC. But before we get to that, before we started recording, you've dropped on me a nice little nugget of information. Colin, why don't you go ahead and give the people out there how you've done on your NCAA bracket this year?
Yeah, so I mean it's not much to brag about, but my Final Four, I had all four of the Final Four. It was one seed, so it's not a really big bold pick, but I
It's
had
not it's not a big bold pick, but that's only the second time in history that all 4 one seeds have made it. So, while that kind of is somewhat of like a basic thing you don't always want to do, as they say, a broken clock is still right twice a day. And in this instance, if you pick all 4 one seeds to make the Final Four, you've been right twice at this point. So, I will
right,
commend you on that.
definitely. So then I also had all 8 of the Elite 8,
Yeah, that's
and
pretty
then I
good.
had 10 of the 16 Sweet 16.
Okay. Yeah, it wasn't hasn't been like a super upset filled tournament so far. It seems like it's been pretty subdued for the most part, but it's still impressive to get, all 8 because again, just because they're chalk 1-2, like that's usually not how it goes. So,
Right.
congrats on that. Hopefully one
Thank you.
day the Ball State men's basketball team will get back into the NCAA tournament. I know the women's team was in there. They got eliminated in the first round, but a great season by them. I know we're kind of focusing the show, basically on football going forward. But we'll still, mention some stuff from time to time. So I want to give a shout out to the women's basketball team as well.
John, two quick things on that.
Yep.
Just if in case people are wondering, they want to know. My championship is Auburn and Duke, and I have
Okay.
Duke winning it all in the men's.
Okay.
And I did take the Ball State women's to the Sweet 16. I'm a diehard like that, so
Yeah,
that screwed me over. That screwed the bracket up, screwed my girls' bracket up, but
that's all
it's
right.
okay. We
But
fight
hey,
on.
speaking of all things Ball State, today, as we're recording this, is a pretty important day for Ball State, not only just the university and the academic side, the athletic programs. This is actually one Ball State day. And so I can kind of throw up here what they've been doing so far today. Give me one second. And here is our current live view of One Ball State Day 2025. You can see right there, almost $1.1 million have been raised so far across, 5,500 different gifts. Now that's for the school, that's for the athletic department, that's for individual sports. There's all kinds of stuff that goes into that, and people can donate however much they want to whatever they want, basically. And you can kind of see on here as we scroll through the women's leaderboard. These are the women's sports. Gymnastics and field hockey are the top 2 gift receivers so far, and obviously football. And men's tennis actually is the second place for men's sports. So that's kind of a little surprising, I think. But Colin, you were saying you gave to One Ball State Day. Where did you send the money? Like did you send it to football? Did you send it just to the school in general? Where did you send your
Yeah,
money?
I sent it to football. I thought it was really easy how you could just donate straight off the phone. You can use Apple Pay on there. Um, and the minimum donation is $5, so if you don't
Hmm.
got a lot, you can still send a little bit. So that was really cool. I mean, it's good for us to show our support, especially if we're gonna be rooting and complaining or, upset with how it goes or happy. You want to say you did your part. So
Right. Yeah. It's like
it's a good thing.
can't complain if you don't participate. So, yeah, it's a great thing across the board that brings everybody together. Alumni, current students, faculty. Everybody's involved with Ball State, and so one Ball State Day is a great way where everyone can kind of focus together on that specific day and throw in their donations. And so, this might cross. What time is it? It's about almost 9 o'clock right now. So, will this cross that 1.1 million mark? Could it go up even further? Who knows? But If for some reason people out there missed your chance, obviously we're posting this the day after One Ball State Day. You're still able to donate all year to either the school or the Cardinal Varsity Club. There's links, on basically every website everywhere. Ball State has no problem taking any money from you. So if you want to give them some money, there are certainly ways to do that. So I still need to donate. I'm going to do that before we finish up today, before the clock strikes midnight. So I got to practice what I preach a little bit. I'll probably give a couple of bucks to football. I'm also a men's volleyball alumni, so I'll probably give men's volleyball a couple of bucks. I know they had some goals they were set. I think they were like looking to raise about 20 grand or something like that. So I'll have to see where their progress is at. But One Ball State Day, obviously a big success, raised over $1 million. So I'm sure we'll be seeing this again next year. Okay, we'll talk a little content. I know Colin is always on everyone out there wanting to hold Ball State to the standard that everyone else out there is doing. We want to make sure we're not only just doing what other people are doing, but even exceeding it. And so when we do stuff like that, we want to kind of give it some props. And so Colin had notified me of some new content that we're getting out there on the. Let me pull it up here. I believe it's the Ball State All Access YouTube channel, and obviously you can see it across all their social media platforms. But they have a new series that they've been starting during spring camp because there's not been a lot of stuff coming out of spring camp that I've seen in terms of content. Um, but we're getting kind of a little bit of an inside look with some of the players with Tie Tuesdays. So this is a kind of a short form interview, little video that comes out once a week where Ty Robinson, he does like a man on the street type interview thing with some of his teammates. It's a fun little insight into spring practice. Like I said, we're not seeing a ton in there because it's kind of been closed off so far. But Colin, I know you're always clamoring for some new content. What do you think about Tie Tuesdays so far?
Yeah, it's probably the best new thing we've got since we did our holiday wish list about wanting more content, about them needing to put more things out there. It's been fun. They're short form, they're humorous. We get to meet, some coaches, some other players. So I thought that was good. And if you dig deep enough, like we have been, or listening closely enough, you can maybe pull a little bit of information from some of the videos, as we did with the most recent one from Tie Tuesday, episode 3. It seems like right now they're, closing off the spring practices. They're trying to be a little bit more hush hush or secretive about what's going on, who's going to be the star, who's going to get the ball a lot. But one of the questions on there was, I want to say it was to our tight end, to Christian Abney, and it was, who would you take on Ball State if you had to draft a fantasy football team? Like,
Mm-hmm.
who would be your first pick?
Yep.
And it was Christian Abney and one other person. Christian Abney said Kyle Kelly, and the other person said J-Mac, who I'm not sure if Ball State fans will be super familiar with. But if you're not, I went through and looked at the roster, and it looks like it's going to be this new Butler transfer wide receiver. What the video, if you just watch it, it's episode 3. We're not going to watch it here, but if you take the time to watch this 2 minutes or so, in the video, he says something like he's been getting it 5 catches a something. I don't know if it was like per, drive or per, scrimmage or whatnot, but it's a good sign for us to have some weapons for um Kyle Kelly in general. So, I just it's just kind of interesting just if you pay attention closely enough, like what you can actually, soak in from the videos they're putting out, even with them not trying to put out who our best player is going to be, so they can, like, know ahead of the time the opponent won't know so much about us necessarily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, it's a fun, the Sports Link and some productions that come out of Ball State are obviously super, super high quality, and they're very well thought together stories and they're really great at storytelling. And those are amazing. And sometimes it's fun just to have these fun little things like this. And so getting players involved and people who are willing to kind of play ball a little bit is good to see. So Ty Robinson, we are anticipating the next Tie Tuesday. And for some reason, I don't see an episode 2. I don't know if there is an episode 2 for Tie Tuesdays, but I just see episode 1, 3. So
Yeah, there was.
it might be
And I'm
it might be on the deleted scenes.
maybe.
Yeah,
And
the lost.
this is a small kind of nugget of really like a greater scheme picture of what we're hoping to see from the team. While this is just something small, it is a good sign of hopefully what's to come when the season picks up, that they actually do pick up more content, I'd love to see Tide Tuesdays continue. So hopefully they do something like this. If it's not the same thing, something similar.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So whoever thought of this, if it was Ty Robinson, kudos to you. If it wasn't, kudos to whoever that was. So, all right. Before we get into kind of our hopes for the upcoming spring game here in about 10 days, we're going to shift our focus elsewhere in the MAC for a minute here. Um, as you guys might have seen recently, Kent State, who is been the worst team in college football for the last couple of years, their head coach, it's Kenny Burns. That's his name, correct?
Correct.
Kenny Burns. He was placed on administrative leave after going 0-12. When the previous year he went 1-11. So it's almost impossible to go 1-11 and have a worse year, but they somehow did.
Right.
So he went on administrative leave. I know he was having some legal trouble with like a bank somewhere in Ohio where he was owing money for some reason.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on with him.
I'm going to address that, brother. We're going to get into all that.
And Colin has been on me for a few days now. He is very fired up about this topic. And Colin will get into it. I want before he goes into it because he's pretty fired up, so I'm not really sure where this is going to go. This is just a rumor. There's no actual truth to this as of right now, or whatever is about to come out of his mouth. I don't know what's about to come out of his mouth. This is just a rumor. Colin is just connecting the dots. We sometimes on Ball State Union we like to connect the dots, and sometimes it's right, sometimes it's not right. But Colin, the floor is yours. I know you've been working on your private investigator skills.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's hear it.
Okay. First off, let me set the scene. I wake up in the morning. This is a Sunday morning, and the news had already dropped. I had seen the spaces that was hosted on Twitter by a lot of the Kent State folks. So I just thought to myself, if there's discussions on point shaving, the first thing we should do is look at the schedule and what the scores of the game were for each game and compare it right next to what the actual spread for the game was. So that's what I want to start off with, John. If you can pull that up first.
Yep,
So I
I
think
got you.
that's where we'll lay the foundation, and then we can work from there.
Okay.
So Pitt ended up a loss for these were all losses for Kent State, obviously.
Correct. Yeah.
But,
Yeah. So they went, as we see right here, 0-12, which is
right.
that's pretty hard to do.
Now Pitt was favored by 24. Kent State managed to lose by 31. Kent State was favored by 17.5 against FCS St. Francis, Pennsylvania. They ended up losing by 6. And actually, that team's going down to D3, but that's a whole different conversation. But
correct.
We should touch on that at some point. But that's pretty embarrassing for Kent State. They just lost to a team that's going down to going down to D3.
Yeah.
But don't let me get off the track here.
Anytime you lose a game that you're not only just not cover the spread, but you lose a game where you're a multi-touchdown favorite, that's pretty bad.
Yeah,
oh,
terrible.
Hold on, I'm on the wrong screen.
Terrible.
Okay, there we go.
17.5-point favorites, and you lose by 6 points.
At home.
At home, yeah, it's just terrible. So in the third game, Tennessee was favored by 49.5, and the over-under was 62.5. Tennessee won 71-0. And by the way, at halftime, it was 65-0.
So
we're gonna touch on this later. We're gonna touch on what happened because there's
so Tennessee covered the spread by themselves, or not? They covered the over and under by themselves, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
In the first half.
Okay. All right.
First half. Some other weird stuff happens in that game, but we're gonna come back to all this.
Okay.
Penn State was favored by 48.5.
Okay.
And they won by 56.
Okay.
Eastern Michigan favored by 14. They beat Kent State by 19. So this is a pattern here you see, like, now one of the only games, and thank God you're here at Ball State Football Talk so we can explain to you why this is. One of the only games that the trend doesn't continue is Kent State versus Ball State. Ball State was a 4.5-point favorite, and Kent State only lost by 2. But I remember that being a really weird game, and the defense kept collapsing. We were up by 9 with 30 seconds left, and they had the ball on their 45. They threw not really a screen pass, but maybe like a 5-yard pass, and big play McCray does what he does, broke like 4 tackles and took it to the house. But that play call, I don't even know necessarily that they wanted to win on that net. Like, I think, dude, it could possibly be an accident. But we're gonna come back to this. I'm making a lot of big claims
Ve-
here. We're gonna
Vegas can't
come,
Vegas can't account for Mike New.
bro. They can't. But let's put a pin in that, and we'll come right back.
All right, fair enough.
Bowling Green was favored by 21. They won by 21. Western Michigan was favored by 19. They won by 31. Ohio was favored by 20 and a half. They won by 41. See, like, a lot of these are really close, but some of them are obviously just like, okay, they got blown out the water. Now the only
I think the only close one has been the one they covered so far.
yes was against us.
Yeah.
Now they had another game, only one other game that they covered. It was Kent State versus Miami, Ohio, and the spread was 30 and a half, and it was 34-7. But there's something weird about that game I noticed too when I went back and watched it. So I'm going to talk about that. But then again, we have Akron, and Akron was a 10.5 point favorite, and they won by 21. Buffalo was a 23.5 point favorite, and they won by 36.
Okay.
Okay, some of it a little bit suspicious maybe, but there's some plausible deniability here. Kent State's really bad. They're terrible. They're losing 41-0. Like, there's no point shaving going on here. And listen, this is all allegedly.
This is
All right.
this is all just a rumor. We're all
Yes.
surmising. Colin's putting pieces together because if I was playing devil's advocate right now, I'd say exactly what you just said. What
Yes.
Kent State might just be really terrible.
They might be. They
Right.
might be. I'm just connecting dots that are out there. Now, here are some of the questionable moments that when I went back and watched some of these games, I noticed, okay, that's weird. Or, I listened to a Tennessee podcast on a similar subject and I said, okay, that's weird. So the first thing I'll talk to you about is we touched on this a little bit. Tennessee was down 65-0 at halftime. And the head coach of Tennessee goes to Kenny Burns at halftime and says, listen, you still have MAC play. We still have SEC play. I want your guys to be healthy. We want to be healthy. The biggest concern right now is health. Can we do a running clock in the second half? And Kenny Burns says no. Kenny Burns says, I want some more. We're down 65-0. Keep beating me, please. Now, I don't know if he wanted him to run up the score more because they never really made much of a drive that looked like they were going to score. I mean, it's a really bad game to go back and watch.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought that was interesting. Now that maybe he wants the guys to get a little bit of extra practice, right? Like,
Right.
okay, maybe we'll give them the benefit of the doubt on that one
Benefit of a
too.
doubt, or they might
Definitely,
come back and say, "Hey, that's embarrassing. We don't want to be the team that had a running clock on us." Like I
sure,
can see some reasons why. So okay,
right, sure, okay. Now this is the one that everyone has keyed in on. Now we're
okay,
going to talk about Akron, Kent State.
okay.
Now at the end of the first half, Akron throws the ball, gets a catch. They're inside the 10. They're running their kicking team on, and it looks like honestly it sounds a little worse until I went back and looked at the footage. The kicker is almost he's getting ready to do his thing, like, but there's only 3-4 seconds left here, and Kenny Burns takes a timeout for Akron to have more time to take the kick.
Interesting.
And it's so weird that the announcers, when you're watching it back, the announcers are saying like maybe he's trying to ice the kicker, but it didn't look like there was a ton of time. So that
Mm-hmm.
that almost looked a little suspicious because Akron's only leading by 7 at the half. So maybe I don't know what the spread of the half for the half was, but the spread for the whole game was 10 and a half. So I imagine the spread was less than 10 at
Right.
halftime.
Probably.
So That's just another weird questionable.
So,
And I just have it written down as
okay.
questionable.
So yeah, and I would say, okay, that is strange, but you also have, and we watch this many times. You watch coaches in the MAC who maybe aren't elite coaches in the MAC just do boneheaded things all the time.
100%.
We watched Missouri State this year run a play on offense, and we had no defense on the field. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
these guys will just do crazy shit that you're not thinking of sometimes. So, okay, but that's probably the weirdest one so far that
Strange.
you've had.
Very strange. And we're playing devil's advocate here as well. Kenny Burns, when he came in, did say, kind of in a way, I'm not an X's and O's guy. I'm just a GM. I'm just the GM of the team.
That's not good.
So that's not a good sign. You never want your coach to say that he's not an X's and O's guy. But
Yeah.
moving past that, one more thing that I found questionable. I mentioned the Miami Ohio game.
Okay.
One of the only games that they did cover the spread, besides Ball State. The score is 31-7. It's going into the fourth quarter. Miami of Ohio has the ball, and it's just going from the third to the fourth quarter. When the fourth quarter starts, Miami of Ohio puts in their second string, which kind of makes sense. There's only 2 games left. They're going to be in the
Mhm.
MAC conference championship, so you want to rest your legs. Okay. They only end up scoring a field goal, so it's 34-7. Now remember, the spread is 30.5. So they need Miami of Ohio to put up another 3 points in that quarter, or the spread is not covered.
Mhm.
What does Kenny Burns do? He puts in his backups. 14 minutes left on the clock in the fourth quarter. You only have 2 games left to play. Nothing really to play for. You're 0-10,
Yeah. Yeah.
0-9 at this point. You're putting in your backups for what reason? You got an answer for that, John?
That one I don't. I'm gonna just chalk that up to there's probably a reason that at that time that coach was 1-21.
Okay. Fair enough.
That's
Fair
all I
enough.
got for you.
Fair
If
enough.
because if he had 2 more games, so he was he would have been 1-21 at that point, or ended up being
Yes.
1-21. So that was my best explanation for that.
Now, John, keep this up because I'm gonna loop back around and use the dates, the timestamps on a certain things
Okay.
just to fully lay out the picture here. My last point, this is kind of just wrapping up what I've said in the questionables.
Okay.
Overall, this was a year full of not scoring points and giving up a ton of points. A ton of points. Okay, finally we're gonna get to the the grand scheme picture here.
Okay.
All of the go back up to Ball State, Kent State.
Okay.
All the games leading up to Ball State, Kent State uh, weren't covered. So Pitt minus 24, it turned out to be 31. Tennessee minus 49.5, ended up 71. Penn State minus 48.5, 56. EMU minus 14, it ended up 19. On October 12th, they don't cover, or they cover. They actually do cover. Kent State covers against Ball State. Miami of Ohio is November 13th. In November of 2024, it comes out that Kenny Burns owes $24,000 in credit card debt to a bank. What does that sound like to you? He makes 500,000 a year.
Yeah, I would think you would have 24 grand to to pay that off if you made.
Unless you break down 500K, you divide it by 52. Without taxes, he's getting like what, 9.5, somewhere around there every 2 weeks. So unless you have a lump sum of 24,000 and you get 9,500 or say 9,000 every 2 weeks, and then you just get hit with a $24,000 payment, you still have a mortgage, you still have a car payment. It sounds like like a payment out of the blue, because normally you just put it on a payment plan or something like that, right? To me, it sounds like allegedly, not, and I'm not alleging, but rumors have it, sounds like a bookie.
Hmm.
It sounds like a bookie.
I don't know
And I hate to
because
I hate to say that. I hate to say that because I was gonna put myself in someone else's shoes. Like, what if I was a family member of this person? Or this is like a really heavy. This is the worst thing you can do in college sports
hmm
is to literally like to rig it,
yeah,
or not to rig it, but just to like do enough, do enough that you're not going to cover the spread. And it was weird because look, I'm watching these games again, John. Like I'm a diehard football fan. I'm watching Kent State, Miami of Ohio. I don't really care about either of the teams. Kent State's players are out there trying. The play calling seemed aggressive. Now I know that's not Kenny Burns, but it's
yeah.
just little things.
So that would be that would be my counterpoint to this whole thing is how would he be rigging the games if he's not calling the plays?
I just think in general, like there's certain moments, that make for points,
hmm
right? Like the timeout at the end of Akron,
Right.
the Ball State game. In terms of, well, I don't know. Does he tell them in this circumstance, I want this type of play called? Like, I don't know if he's actually doing the play calling, but is he directing the assistant coaches as to what's going on? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
is he pointing them in the direction that he wants them to go? Or is he literally, as he said, he's just the GM?
Yeah. I don't know. For his sake, I hope it's that. Hope it's just he's the GM and he just is just not good at it. So for his sake and everyone's sake, I hope that's the case. Yeah, because it still had they still haven't formally came out and said why he's on administrative leave. Correct.
Yeah, they haven't. But
Yeah.
and then it's just strange because some of this is so close.
Right.
Like 48.5 against Penn State, and you lose by 56.
Yeah. I mean, that's betting. That's a
I
nice
mean, or
little
is
margin.
Vegas just that good?
That probably that. Yeah. So,
It could be a
uh,
mixture of all of it. And
yeah. So
if it is, then he should go free. But if I'm Penn State, I don't even know if I still want him there.
no,
Even if
no, yeah, he's no, I don't want him there. I wouldn't want him there because he's 1-23.
and it's
He
sad,
went 1-11 and somehow was
right?
worse the next year.
And John, the sad thing is this is a program that has had legendary coaches there.
hmm
Like Nick Saban was in that building, Marcus Freeman was in that building. Like call one of these people and just ask. Like I don't understand
Well,
why
I
they
think
wouldn't.
isn't that the rumors that Josh Cribbs wants to be the coach now?
I saw that. I saw
Yeah.
that. They might need to make that move, honestly.
Yeah. So, all right. So interesting theory from Colin on that. You know, you can believe whatever you choose to believe. That could be going on. They could just be ass. I don't really know.
Who
So
knows? If I'm right, I am going to bring it up though later that I called it because nobody is talking about this, John.
that's true. That's true.
Nobody is
No one
talking
is.
about this. Why is
So
nobody talking about this? If you're a
hmm
Kent State fan, what are you doing? You should be trying to get rid of this coach. And you're just
yeah,
like, "Oh, if he did it, he did it. If he didn't, he didn't." I mean, look, we're not going to get any more information than we already have than we just like breaking down the numbers and looking at it side by side. But you should at least be doing some digging. You should at least be trying to figure out what's going on.
yeah, yeah. I mean, if you're a Kent State fan, I don't think this coach is coming back. So I think you're okay in that regard. If he's 1-23 and he's was placed on a mysterious administrative leave, I don't think he's coming back. I think they're
For
going to
their
stay.
sake, I hope it's for cause.
Right. Yeah.
And I hope Kent State doesn't get caught up in this because here's the real stinker in this all, John, is if Kent State gets any way implicated in knowing that Kenny Burns had anything going on with this, like could we see a temporary death sentence for Kent State's football? Like I hope not because that's a free win for us.
Right.
But is it possible? Like, I don't know.
Who knows? Everything changes too much too quickly nowadays. To any precedent that's really been set in the past is hard to probably place nowadays because the rules
Right.
are also different. But all right, I think we got enough Kent State out of us, right?
I think so.
Okay.
If it does happen, they heard it here first, John.
Okay. Perfect. All right, let's get back to some Ball State football. We got a spring game coming up. Colin, are you still planning on going?
Oh yeah, I'll be there. I'll be there
Okay.
myself and a pal of mine, a fellow Ball State football talker will be there.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah. We'll hopefully be able to get some video and some insight from you on those. But for those who aren't aware, spring game is going to be Saturday, April 12th. So about 10 days, 1 p.m. at Schumann Stadium. And Ball State is actually partnering with the Muncie Mission Food Drive. So basically, if you come to the game, bring some non-perishable food items, donate them there. It's for a good cause. You're already going to the game anyways. You're already probably going to the grocery store that week anyways. Grab a couple extra things. I think people get caught up in we're going to donate to food banks and stuff like that around Thanksgiving and Christmas and stuff. But people will need food all year long. So good on Ball State football and any other Ball State teams or parts of the university that do stuff like this. So be sure when you go, Colin, you bring some extra food with you.
Definitely. Will do.
All right. Some things that we're going to be looking forward to seeing or getting some information of from the spring game. Because as we talked on earlier, there's not been tons of stuff that I've seen come out from spring practice so far. They're a couple weeks in now, so usually you'd be seeing some stuff, but they kind of have been keeping everything under lock and key. I assume it's because there's a new coaching staff in there and they kind of want to keep stuff under wraps as best they can. So I got a couple things that I'm interested in seeing, and hopefully you'll be able to kind of give me a little bit more insight on when you're actually at the game. I'm sure you have a couple. Why don't you kick us off? Give us something that you're looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, I'll start off with the quarterback room in general. Kyle Kelly and Walter Taylor. Um, I was just seeing something recently. I saw like a picture of it was a video, and I screenshotted a picture of Kyle Kelly next to this coach, and then a picture of Walter Taylor next to the coach, and the size difference is crazy.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
But Kyle Kelly's super fast. He's definitely got a little bit of swag, got some aura to him. So I think being able to see him live, see how he looks, see real life speed, what that looks like. Because I've actually never been able to see Kyle Kelly play in real life, so be
Hmm.
super excited to see that. Walter Taylor, how's he throw it? That's my first thing I'm most excited to see.
Yeah, and that's one of the. I have about three things listed. That's one of mine as well. Is basically kind of exactly what you're saying. Who is going to be the quarterback this year? We would assume as of right now the plan is for Kyle Kelly to be the quarterback. He ended up coming back. It sounds like the offense that they're planning on running, basically kind of what we were talking about with Chris Radican, a couple months back, right when Coach Arimovich got hired. It's going to be kind of more like a run first type offense. Not going to be as pass heavy as they were, and had Caden Samanza the last couple of years. And so you would think that plays into the strengths of Kyle Kelly. Um, but with that said, Walter Taylor is like just basically seems like he's a bigger version of Kyle Kelly. So is he as fast as Kyle Kelly? I don't know. Is he a better thrower than him? I don't know. But I know, like you said, size wise, he's a big athletic guy. So it sounds like he would be pretty well suited to run this offense as well. But they're going to find out once they really get on the field and start playing. They're not going to play anybody yet. Obviously, we had to wait till they play Purdue, but we'll find out a little bit more. So that was one of the things I was most interested in seeing is these two quarterbacks. Presumably, those would be the two that had the best chance of playing, and who's going to end up winning that job. That's for pretty much every Ball State football fan out there, I would assume. I have one thing higher than that on the list, but that's probably going to be the next thing right there.
Okay. What was your number one?
I want to get our first look at what we can expect from a Mike Arimovich football team. Now, everything that you're going to see in a spring game is going to be very vanilla. It's going to be, very simple. You're not going to want to show anything off to any of the teams that are going to be on your schedule. But this is still going to be everyone's first glimpse of it. Now, if you've gone back and watched anything from Butler or, some of the teams he was with NIU, then you probably have an idea of what to expect. But again, offensively, we're supposed to expect kind of more of a run heavy team, and the quarterback that theoretically should be able to move with his legs as well. And so I'm interested to see what that looks like. Obviously, I'm not an X's and O's expert, so defense is always a little bit harder for me to really figure out what's going on in terms of scheme and stuff like that. But I'll be interested to see kind of how that plays out with this new coaching staff.
I like that. Yeah, scheme's
Yeah.
important. Scheme is definitely important.
Mm-hmm.
Be interesting to see what he does.
Yeah. So that I'm interested to see our first real glimpse of them on the field. Obviously, you've seen interviews
Mhm.
with him, you've seen him, the recruits he's bringing in, you've seen all that type of stuff. But this would be our first, you know, it's more of a scrimmage nowadays than a mock game, like a fake game like it used to be. But um, I'll be interested to see what it looks like.
Yeah, 'cause in this day and age of the disparity in wealth between programs, scheme can actually, like, lessen that
Hmm.
disparity. I'll give you an example, the triple option for a team, like the academies, like a Navy or, an Air Force or an Army, like, if they run the triple option, I feel like sometimes they might not have the same talent that a Notre Dame or a USC or a school like that has, but every now and then, they'll catch them slipping,
Hmm.
and then they can win a couple games. So I think if we have the right scheme, using the right players and using their talent, to the best of their ability, especially Kyle Kelly, I think he's a playmaker. We put the right running back next to him, and I think right there alone, they're in for trouble.
Well, that's a perfect segue to my number three. I'm excited to see Quay Ashley.
Yeah,
Big
definitely.
transfer coming to us out of Kennesaw State, which you might think, okay, he's coming from Kennesaw State. How big of a transfer can he be? He's a big time kick returner, all conference kick returner, all conference running back. They got a hole at running back one, and so they're looking to fill it. Obviously, they have a couple other guys, who are going to be fighting for that job. But he seems like a pretty explosive player. Again, come from Kennesaw State, I haven't really seen him play too much, but the accolades speak volumes, and so I'm excited to see what he's really about and see how fast he is because I'm sure he's going to basically be the fastest guy on the field, and so I'm interested to see what that speed looks like.
Yeah, 100%,
Yeah,
100%. My last one that I had was just seeing uh, this what Ball State has done with the wide receiver group
yeah,
as a whole with the next man up approach. I'm just excited to see what Shaq Van, the wide receiver coach, can do again this upcoming year. In that same kind of capacity with Ty Robinson, Keon Magwood, J Mac, the guy that everybody's been talking about. I believe Eric Weatherly is another
yeah.
kid that's supposed to be a stud.
Transferred in. He's an all conference guy as well. From I think Bucknell I believe that's where he came from.
Yeah.
He's an all conference guy at the FCS level. So
I'm excited about him. So there's a ton of people coming in right now, and I'm just interested to see like how he'll manage that, who will be, our starting three, and then how he'll work everybody in because I want to see everybody I just named right there, honestly, like get a little bit of PT at least. So it'll be interesting. And then, injuries are bound to come up and knock on
right,
wood. I don't want anything to happen to Ty Robinson, but hopefully we have that same steadfast approach of when one guy goes down in the wide receiver room, it doesn't stop us. We continue to see someone else improve. Then if they go down, then someone else pops out. Because last year, that's what it was nonstop. And
right,
if you look at the transfer portals that left, we got a guy that went to Kansas that was a wide receiver. We got a wide receiver that went to Illinois, Justin Bowick Jr. So I think Shaq Van already has like a proven record with his wide receiver room, and I'm interested to see how he continues to see them growing and supporting them, to be their best because it was a highlight, and I hope to see it continue.
yep. That would have if I was originally just trying to decide if I was going to have 3 points or five. I was going to do one of the two. If I would have expanded past three, wide receiver was going to be one of them because, like you said, we had a lot of big time names go out, and hopefully the names we got come in. And the reason that those guys became big names, we're hoping, is because obviously they're talented players, but we're hoping that coach Shaq Van is the reason that they were able to do that. And then also defensive backfield because we lost a lot of people. We had Dee Snyder go to UMass. We had um, names. I'm missing the
George
name right now,
Udo's
but
gone.
the guy who went to South Carolina. There's a guy who went to South Carolina, defensive back,
Yeah, yeah.
Miles Norwood.
Miles
That's his name.
Norwood. Yep,
And so losing some names there. So I'm interested to see how that comes over as well. But those have been kind of my five if I had them.
definitely.
But
And we got to see which side of the line is stronger. Is the D line better than the O line? I mean, they have nobody to go against but each other, and I'm gonna be
mhm,
watching. I'm gonna be trying to watch everything. So I'll see which side of the line has been eating their Wheaties more than the other.
right. Yeah, and actually, so I have. Do you have any other things that you're kind of looking forward to? I know there's not tons to really go on right now, but
One last thing, if you see any videos coming out of spring camp or spring training, spring game day, anything from Ball State Football Talk, Ball State the Union, I will have the new merch on, so it'll be
oh,
a
there we
little
go.
sneak peek. That's something to look forward to for the
There we
viewers.
go. Yeah, got to be subscribed so you can see that when it comes out.
Yeah.
So I did have an idea for future spring games, and actually, I've had this idea for a while, and it's unfortunate that I'm just now bringing it up because it has kind of gained traction over the last couple months. But so if you can see that, damn it,
Robert Mathis?
that Robert Mathis jersey right there. So I worked for the Colts for a few years, and one thing that you do during training camp there, not everyone does this, but teams are starting to do it more and more, is you'll have joint practices before a preseason game. And so, like when I worked there, we had joint practice with the Bears, with the Ravens, with the Lions. I know they've done it with the Cardinals, do it all kind of teams. I've always thought since they've kind of neutered spring games here in the last few years, where it's not more of like a live game, it's more of just like basically a live practice. Before it used to be like an actual game. Now it's like they have a script, and I think they they're spotting the ball and this, that, and the other. I always thought that they should play somebody else in this spring game. And it doesn't have to be full on tackle if you don't want it to. It can be like a thud type thing. It can be whatever you want it to be. But I always thought that they should play somebody else. Now it's coming out, I guess, that Colorado and Syracuse. Oops, sorry for our listeners out there for that. It's coming out now. Colorado and Syracuse were trying to do this. I don't know if it's this year or in the coming years. And the NCAA has come back and said no, which I don't even understand how they have the authority of this. Weren't telling anybody knowing anything, but yeah, I thought it'd be cool if we actually played somebody, and you could also you could either do like a home and home where you kind of play one year and play the other year, or maybe you could do two scrimmages, you know do one in the middle of camp, one at the end of camp, or something like that. And I know like Oklahoma and Oklahoma State have talked about, since they're in different conferences now, they could find a way to play each other again. So I think that would be fun. I don't know who we would play. We don't have like a natural team like on the same exact level as us close by that's not a conference opponent. My first thoughts were playing Indiana State, doing this against Indiana State, or even Butler now, since we have that coach kind of being the middleman between those. So obviously, Ball State's a higher level of play than both of those schools, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that could be interesting. I would be actually all for, two teams playing each other in the spring game. And I saw there was two different kind of ways of thinking of it. Definitely that Colorado and Syracuse, the two coaches, wanted to play each other. And then I heard from the GM of North Carolina, Bill Belichick's GM, where he thought it was preposterous and it didn't make any sense. And why would you risk injury and this and that? I think there's something to be said about getting practice with live bullets.
Hmm.
Going at somebody and getting that taste of like when the adrenaline's going. I think that's positive for some teams. There is definitely an injury concern, but I think it'd be cool for the fans to see too. I'm kind of tired of like taking stuff away from the fans. Like no more
Hmm.
spring game, no more kickoff, no more, all this stuff like no more hitting the quarterback, no more like dude, what happened? Like can we just play the game we love and like let the players play? It just seems like it's narrowing and even like how they're trying to I think in the future it's going to be like a power 2 league.
Hmm.
I don't like any of it. I just want it to be the game we love. Just let it be. Just the only new thing that they did that I kind of liked was, putting the chips in the ball so we get the automatic first down. Like
Yeah.
I just I don't know. I kind of got off on a tangent, but I would like to I would like if two teams want to play each other, do it.
Yeah.
I think
And,
that's great.
like I said, we did it in the NFL all the time. It's kind of a newer thing in the NFL. For these joint practices. And again, it can be exactly that. It doesn't have to be a game. If you don't want to have live hitting, you don't have to have live hitting. But or live, like it doesn't have to. You don't have to tackle. there's ways around it, but you can see, you can get different looks. And honestly, it would be a cool thing for the fans, but it would be a lot more beneficial for the team and the players themselves, I would think, because you've spent, however many weeks at this point going against the same, if you're a wide receiver, you'll have spent the last 2 months going against the same 10 defensive backs. Now you can see somebody different for a change.
Right.
Before you get into the fall, we're going to have to do that again. You're going to go through fall camp and then go right into regular actual live games. So just an interesting thing. I'm sure people will poo poo it and not let anyone have any fun, but it'd be fun to do something like that.
And say you're Ball State and another big school is going to pay you to come down there and be a warm up practice game for them. And
Hell
then
yeah.
now you only have, but my point is now you only have to have one Power 5 game where they pay you $1 million to come down there to, get beat down instead of two, because say maybe, Michigan or somebody pays you 500,000 to come for this spring game to drive up here and play the spring game. It's just an
Mhm.
idea, but another way for us to make money. I'm not saying it'd work or it'd be good or it wouldn't, but I mean, it's just an idea.
Right. Yeah, no. I mean, I think it's a good idea personally. So, um, all right. You got anything else for us here today?
That's really it, man. I'm excited to bring you guys some new content for the spring game. John and I will get together quite soon afterwards, I'm sure. And chirp, chirp.
Yep. All right. So be on the lookout. If we don't see you guys again, I would say right around the spring game, we'll get together shortly after, either the day of or the day after, and we'll knock something out. Because I'll be interested to see. I don't know if I'll be able to watch it live or not, or if that's even an option. I don't know if you can even watch it live or not, but from remotely. So if I can't, then I'm gonna need to rely on Colin to give me all the juicy details from the actual game. So
We'll have it.
remember, if you're going to the game, bring some non-perishable foods. So the Muncie Mission Food Drive can get some extra food for themselves, so they can distribute that to all those in need in the Muncie area. But until then, keep on chirping, everybody. Donate if you still have time. If you miss one Ball State day, which you will if you're watching this, but be sure to donate if you didn't another way. So, Colin, it's good to talk to you. Chirp, chirp. We'll be at it again soon.